The galaxy had changed long before the Zorath Empire decided to attack Earth. For hundreds of years, humans had explored quietly, learning, trading, and surviving. They were not the oldest race, not the strongest, not even the smartest. But they had something the others never understood, the will to fight until the very end. When the Zorath declared war, most of the galaxy didn't care. Many thought it was only a matter of time before humanity fell. The Zorath Empire had crushed entire systems before. They were known for their power, their arrogance, and their cruelty. They saw humans as just another weak species with too much hope and too little strength, but they were wrong. The first attack came on a cold morning when the Earth's moon was hidden in darkness. The Zorath fleet appeared without warning, hundreds of warships cutting through space like blades of fire. Their leader, Admiral Korthal, smiled in his command chair. "Burn their world," he said, and the sky above Earth lit up with explosions. For hours, the Zorath believed they were winning. Their scanners showed human ships burning, space stations destroyed, and communication networks collapsing. They laughed. They sent messages to the Galactic Council saying the humans were finished. But down on Earth, under the oceans, inside mountains, and deep beneath the surface, humanity was not defeated. They were waiting. Commander Elena Reyes stood inside the control room of the Terran Defense Command. The room was silent except for the hum of power systems and the steady heartbeat of radar pings. She watched the enemy fleets move closer on the screen, red dots spreading like blood. Beside her, technicians whispered updates, their voices tense but steady. "Ma'am, orbital shields are at 60%, one said. "Understood," Reyes replied. She didn't shout. She didn't panic. Her voice was calm, controlled, the voice of someone who had seen too many wars already. On another screen, Earth's cities were glowing under the shields, like candles under glass. Millions of people watched the battle from shelters, holding their breath, praying silently. Everyone knew. If the shields failed, it would be the end, but humanity had learned from the past. Every war, every loss had taught them something. They had studied alien tactics, reverse-engineered their weapons, and built something new, something no one knew about. As the Zorath ships fired again, the shields began to crack. A blue flash ripped through the sky, and for a moment it looked like the defense grid would fall. Korthal smiled, his sharp teeth glowing in the light of his console. "Pathetic," he said. "They hide behind glass and call it courage." Then the light changed. The human shield didn't collapse. It absorbed the energy. Every pulse, every plasma shot, every bolt of destruction vanished into silence. For a heartbeat, even the stars seemed to stop moving. "Admiral, we're detecting energy feedback," one of Korthal's officers said. "What?" he barked. "That's impossible. Their technology can't—" But before he could finish, several Zorath ships exploded at once. The feedback from their own weapons had turned against them. Down on Earth, Commander Reyes gave a quiet order: activate the Aegis net. Across the planet, hidden satellites came to life. They were small, invisible to scanners, but together they formed a giant web of light that stretched beyond Earth's orbit. The Aegis net didn't just defend. It learned. It copied energy signatures, predicted enemy fire, and reflected it back tenfold. The Zorath fleet's victory turned into confusion. Their weapons were failing. Their shields flickered. In less than a minute, dozens of ships were destroyed, not by human missiles, but by their own power. "Admiral, we must retreat," shouted a Zorath officer. Korthal slammed his claws into the console. "No, they are weak. Push forward." But his voice no longer carried confidence. Behind him, alarms screamed and flames filled the control deck. On Earth, Reyes watched the battle unfold in silence. Her second-in-command turned to her. "Ma'am, the Aegis net is holding." "They're falling apart." Reyes didn't smile. She just whispered, "They underestimated us again." Outside, the blackness of space was filled with wreckage, silent metal tombs floating between stars. Humanity had survived the first strike, but Reyes knew this was only the beginning. The Zorath would not stop. They would regroup, rebuild, and come again, harder, angrier, more desperate. And next time, the war would spread far beyond Earth. In that moment, she made a silent promise. If they want war, she thought, we'll show them what it truly means. The galaxy had ignored humanity for too long. Now everyone would be watching. And as the first dawn rose over Earth's horizon, the message was clear. Humanity would never kneel. The silence after the first battle was heavy, almost unreal. For 3 days, the wreckage of the Zorath fleet drifted across the void. Broken ships glimmered like dying stars, their metal shells cracked and burnt. Earth was safe, for now. Commander Elena Reyes stood inside the command deck of the TDS Valiant, orbiting high above the planet. Her tired eyes stared at the floating debris on the main screen. She should have felt victory. Instead, she only felt the weight of what was coming next. The Zorath will not accept this loss, she said quietly. Her second-in-command, Captain Hayes, nodded. They'll come again, and next time they'll bring their full strength. Reyes turned toward him. Then we'll be ready. Down on the planet, humanity worked without rest. Every factory, every shipyard, every scientist knew what was at stake. The Aegis net had saved Earth, but it could not protect forever. Resources were running low, and the system needed time to recharge. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, in the dark heart of the Zorath Empire, Admiral Korthal stood before the Emperor. His armor was scorched, his pride shattered. The Emperor's voice was cold and deep, like thunder behind stone. You failed to break the humans, he said. Explain yourself. Korthal bowed his head. Their defense was unexpected. They have developed technology beyond their level. The Emperor leaned forward, his 4 golden eyes glowing. No, they stole it. No human could create such power. He turned toward his generals. Prepare the second fleet. Burn their world until nothing remains. Within days, the Zorath mobilized half their empire. Thousands of warships, carriers, and dreadnoughts gathered near a red dwarf star. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in their history. Their goal was simple: erase humanity completely. Back in Sol System, humanity detected their movement early. Reyes watched the readings appear on her screen, a storm of red dots moving fast. They're not waiting, she said. They're coming straight for us. The room went silent. Every officer, every soldier, every technician stopped what they were doing. Everyone understood. This was the real war. Reyes opened a communication line to the Earth Defense Council. Begin evacuation protocols for civilian colonies. Prepare orbital units. And send the message to all ships. Project Dawnfire is authorized. Project Dawnfire, the secret fleet hidden behind the moon's shadow. Built in silence over the last 10 years, powered by quantum cores, and piloted by the best of humanity. Each ship was armed with experimental rail plasma cannons capable of tearing through capital armor. It was humanity's last surprise. Hours later, as the Zorath fleet entered the outer edges of the solar system, humanity made its first move. A small scout ship, TDS Falcon, slipped through the asteroid belt undetected. Its mission, to test the enemy's strength and lure them in. The Falcon's pilot, Lieutenant Mira Chen, tightened her gloves and whispered, "For Earth," before activating her engines. She darted through space like a spark in the dark. When the Zorath scanners finally picked her up, it was too late. She had already transmitted all their coordinates back to command. But before she could escape, enemy fire caught her ship. The Falcon burned, her voice echoing over the radio. "Tell them! They're not ready for what's coming." Then silence. Reyes closed her eyes for a moment. Another name to remember. Another reason to fight harder. As the Zorath approached, the Aegis net lit up again, glowing across the night sky like a spiderweb of light. The first wave of plasma struck, brighter, stronger, louder than before. This time the shield trembled, shaking the air on the planet below. "Shields at 70%, a technician shouted. "Hold it," Reyes ordered. "Just hold it!" The control room shook with each impact. Even the strongest structures on Earth vibrated under the power of the attack. Outside, meteors of energy fell like rain. Then suddenly the firing stopped. The Zorath fleet had paused. Reyes frowned. Why did they stop? A new signal appeared on the comms. It was Korthal. His scarred face filled the screen. "Commander Reyes," he said, his voice dripping with hatred, "you humans fight well, but it ends now. Surrender your world, and I will let your people live as slaves." Reyes didn't look away. Her face was calm, her voice steady. "You made one mistake, Admiral." He tilted his head. "And what is that?" "You thought you could defeat humanity." She gave the order. "Dawnfire Fleet, engage." From behind the moon, the dark sky exploded into light. Hundreds of human warships surged forward, engines blazing blue. The Zorath scanners went wild as new contacts filled their screens. The humans didn't wait. They fired first. Beams of white plasma streaked across space, hitting the enemy fleet head-on. Zorath ships burst into flames, their shields tearing apart under the pressure. The humans had turned the battlefield into a storm of fire and light. In less than 10 minutes, the largest Zorath advance in history was broken. Their formation collapsed, their communication lines jammed, and their command ship crippled. Korthal watched in disbelief. How did they build so many ships? On the TDS Valiant, Reyes watched the chaos unfold. Her eyes were hard, but her voice was soft. "We didn't build them to conquer," she whispered. "We built them to survive." The Second Battle of Earth had begun, and this time humanity was not defending. They were striking back. The blackness of space burned with the light of war. Every second, explosions bloomed like fiery flowers between the stars. The Dawnfire Fleet was no longer hidden. Humanity's secret was finally revealed to the galaxy. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the command bridge of the TDS Valiant, her face illuminated by the flicker of tactical screens. Her voice was calm, but every word carried power. "Target the Zorath command ship. Focus fire. Keep formation tight. Let's show them what we've built." The human fleet moved like a living machine. Sleek warships, forged in secret shipyards beneath the oceans and on Mars, charged ahead with perfect precision. Their hulls shimmered with white and blue energy. The Dawnfire ships were different, faster, smarter, and deadlier than anything the galaxy had ever seen. For years, humanity had worked in silence. While the rest of the galaxy dismissed them as young and weak, humans were building something extraordinary. They had taken alien technology and made it better, stronger, more efficient, and more human. At the center of the fleet was the TDS Titan, the flagship of Project Dawnfire. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, nearly 3 kilometers long, powered by a new kind of reactor, a quantum core that could bend energy itself. Its weapons were powered not by plasma or fission, but by light captured from a dying star. When the Titan fired its main cannon for the first time, the stars themselves seemed to fade. A single beam of white energy cut through the void, slicing through the Zorath dreadnought like paper. The explosion that followed was so bright it was visible from Mars. On the enemy bridge, Admiral Korthal watched in disbelief as his ships were torn apart. He slammed his claws on the console. "Impossible! They cannot have this power! They are insects! They should be begging for mercy!" But no one answered him. His officers were too busy trying to control the chaos. The humans had turned the battlefield into a storm. Reyes turned to her crew. "Maintain fire. Don't chase. Let them come to us." Her tone was steady, almost cold. She wasn't fighting for glory. She was fighting to survive. Outside, the battle became a dance of light and death. Human ships dodged incoming plasma, returning fire with precise bursts of energy. The Dawnfire fleet's targeting systems predicted enemy movement seconds before it happened. For every human ship destroyed, 5 Zorath warships fell. Then something unexpected happened. A message came through the comms, encrypted and ancient. It wasn't from the Zorath. It was from the outer colonies. "This is Outpost Vega. We see your fleet. The whole galaxy is watching. Commander, you're not fighting alone." Reyes paused. Her eyes softened for a moment. "Send them my thanks," she said quietly. "Tell them humanity stands." That simple message spread faster than light. Other colonies, Luna, Titan, Europa, even the distant mining worlds, began to awaken. All defense satellites powered up. Civilian ships were refitted for war. For the first time in history, humanity was united. Meanwhile, on the Zorath command ship, panic spread. Their scanners were failing, their engines overloading. Every system was breaking down. One officer turned to Korthal, fear in his voice. "Admiral, it's over. They've destroyed the fleet." Korthal's face twisted with rage.
"Then we take them with us."
"Arm the self-destruct sequence." But before the command could be executed, the TDS Titan locked on. Its main cannon fired again, and the Zorath flagship vanished in a blinding flash. The shockwave rolled through space, scattering what remained of the alien fleet. The few surviving ships turned and fled, broken, beaten, terrified. The mighty Zorath Empire, once feared across the stars, had been defeated by the one race they thought would never matter. On the bridge of the Valiant, silence fell. Only the soft hum of the engines filled the air. Captain Hayes whispered, "We did it." "They're gone." Reyes didn't answer at first. Her eyes were still fixed on the stars. She knew this wasn't the end. The Zorath Empire was vast. One fleet destroyed wouldn't end the war. But it was a beginning. "No," she finally said. "We showed them what happens when humanity stands together. But this was just the first lesson." She turned to her crew. "Send recovery teams. Rescue survivors, both human and alien. We're not monsters. We fight to protect, not to conquer." Her words carried across every ship in the fleet. Tired soldiers, engineers, and pilots lifted their heads. They had won, not just with power, but with heart. As the wreckage of the Zorath fleet drifted through the void, a faint blue glow shimmered from Earth below. The Aegis net was still active, protecting their home. Children on the planet looked up at the night sky, watching the faint trails of light from human ships. For them, it wasn't fear anymore. It was hope. Reyes took one last look at the battlefield and whispered to herself, "They thought they could defeat us." That was their first mistake. The message spread across the galaxy, echoing through every communication channel. Humanity has risen, and somewhere, far away, hidden deep within the Zorath Empire, someone was listening. Someone who would not forget this defeat. The next war was already beginning. The stars were quiet again, but no one on Earth celebrated. The war wasn't over, not even close. The Zorath Empire had lost a fleet, but not their pride. And pride, humanity had learned, was the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. Commander Elena Reyes stood alone on the observation deck of the TDS Valiant. Through the glass, she watched the faint light of the Aegis net wrapping Earth like a blue shield. The planet looked peaceful from up here, too peaceful for what was coming. Behind her, Captain Hayes walked in. "They've gone silent," he said. Reyes didn't turn. "The Zorath?" He nodded. "No transmissions. No new fleets spotted yet. But we know they're regrouping." Reyes sighed. "Of course they are. Empires don't vanish after one defeat." Down below, humanity was changing. Cities once filled with fear were now alive with determination. People worked day and night, repairing ships, building weapons, and training new soldiers. Every man, woman, and child knew the truth. The galaxy would come for them again. News from the colonies brought both hope and sorrow. Some worlds were rising up, joining the fight. Others had already been attacked by Zorath raiders seeking revenge. There were reports of entire settlements burned, millions lost. Reyes read every report herself. She memorized the names of the fallen. To her, they weren't numbers. They were people, families, children. And each one gave her another reason not to stop. The enemy's return, far across the void, the Zorath Emperor stood inside his dark palace. Before him floated a hologram of Earth, blue, bright, and defiant. The defeat of his fleet had spread across the stars, and his empire trembled. "One human world," he said slowly, "and they humiliated us." His voice was calm, but his claws were shaking with rage. Around him his generals bowed low, afraid to speak. "They believe they are strong," the Emperor continued. "But they forget, power is not just in weapons. It is in fear." He turned toward his council. "If they will not kneel, then we will make the galaxy fear them. We will turn their strength into their curse." New fleets were being built, not for battle, but for destruction. Weapons that could poison planets, darken suns, and erase life. The Zorath no longer sought victory. They wanted extinction. Back on Earth, in the command center of the Terran Defense, Reyes met with the world leaders. Holograms of different representatives flickered across the room. An old scientist, Dr. Aaron Voss, leaned forward. "Commander, we've been studying the wreckage from the Zorath ships. We found something disturbing." Reyes frowned. "What is it?" "They were tracking us. Not just ships, but DNA signatures. They wanted to map humanity itself." The room went silent. Reyes' eyes narrowed. "They're planning something bigger," Dr. Voss nodded. "Something that targets humans directly. A bioweapon." Reyes looked around the table. "Then we can't wait for them to strike. We take the fight to them." Gasps filled the room. A young officer protested, "Commander, that's suicide. The Zorath home system is in the outer rim, deep inside enemy territory." Reyes stood tall, her voice steady. "Every war has a turning point. This is ours. If we wait, they'll come again stronger. If we move first, we might end it before they destroy another world." The leaders exchanged glances. Then slowly, one by one, they nodded. "Then humanity fights," said the president of the Earth Council. "And this time," Reyes added, "we decide how it ends." The journey begins. Within a week, the Dawnfire fleet prepared for its greatest mission yet, an assault deep into Zorath space. Every pilot knew the risks. Few expected to return, but none hesitated. Before launch, Reyes walked through the hangar, looking at her crew. Mechanics saluted. Pilots gave her a nod of respect. Everyone there knew her name, not as a leader, but as someone who fought beside them. Captain Hayes approached, carrying a small holographic photo, an image of Earth seen from the moon. "For luck," he said. Reyes smiled faintly. "We'll need more than luck," Hayes nodded. "Then we'll make our own." As the fleet rose from orbit, people across Earth looked up, watching the bright trails of light crossing the sky. Children waved, families prayed, soldiers saluted. The fleet disappeared into the stars, heading toward the heart of the enemy. The quiet. Before the storm, for weeks, the journey was silent. No signals, no battles, just endless space. But that silence carried tension. Everyone knew, once they reached Zorath territory, there would be no turning back. Inside her quarters, Reyes stared at the map of the galaxy. Her fingers traced the line leading to the Zorath homeworld. She whispered to herself, "We don't destroy them. We teach them. This time, they will understand what humanity means." She didn't know that far ahead, beyond the last star, the Zorath Emperor was already waiting. He had seen the human fleet coming, and he had a trap prepared, something darker than anyone could imagine. The war was about to change. Not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The human fleet entered Zorath space under the cover of silence. For the first time in history, humanity was the invader. There was no cheering, no celebration, only determination. Each pilot, each soldier knew the truth. If they failed here, Earth would burn. Commander Eleanor Reyes stood on the bridge of the TDS Titan, watching the stars shift as the fleet dropped out of warp. Before them lay a giant red world, the Zorath home planet. Its surface glowed with massive cities and black spires that reached into the clouds like claws. The home of their enemy, and the heart of their empire. Captain Hayes whispered, "It's beautiful and terrifying." Reyes nodded. So was Earth before the first invasion. They had come a long way, from defending their home to standing here, above the world that had tried to erase them. But this mission wasn't about revenge. It was about ending the cycle of destruction once and for all. The trap awakens. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. "Multiple energy signatures detected," shouted the tactical officer. On the screen, hundreds of red signals appeared, ships rising from the planet's surface. The Zorath were waiting. Reyes clenched her jaw. "So they were expecting us." Hayes turned to her. "Orders, Commander?" "We hold position. Prepare the Aegis field." Within seconds, a blue web of energy surrounded the human fleet, a new mobile version of Earth's shield system. The Zorath ships opened fire immediately. Bright plasma bolts crossed the darkness like lightning. The first few blasts struck the shield, shaking the entire formation. Then the Aegis field responded, absorbing the energy and reflecting it back. Dozens of Zorath ships exploded, caught in their own counterfire. But the trap wasn't only in space. "Commander!" shouted a sensor officer. "We're detecting a massive power surge from the planet's surface." Reyes turned to the display. A blinding light was growing near the planet's core. Dr. Voss's warning echoed in her mind, a weapon that targets humans directly. "They built it," she whispered. "They actually built it." The Zorath had created a biological pulse, a weapon designed to destroy human DNA across light years. If it fired, every human in the system would die instantly. "Can we stop it?" Hayes asked. Reyes looked at the readings. "No, but we can get close enough to destroy the source." She activated the fleet-wide channel. "This is Commander Reyes. The Zorath are preparing a planet-wide weapon. If it fires, we're all gone. There's no retreat. We take it down now." Her voice was steady, but every word carried fire. "For every world they burned, for every life they took. This is for humanity. The final assault, the human fleet split into wings and dove toward the planet. Flames from the upper atmosphere wrapped around the hulls as they descended. Enemy fire chased them like comets. The TDS Titan led the charge, engines burning bright blue. Inside, the ship shook violently. Panels sparked, alarms screamed, but Reyes didn't flinch. "Keep us steady. We're not dying up here." From orbit, human bombers unleashed waves of kinetic strikes, tearing through Zorath defenses. Cities collapsed in clouds of red and gold fire. Deep beneath the surface, the pulse generator glowed brighter, charging for its final activation. "Target locked," said the weapons officer. "Fire everything," Reyes ordered. The Titan's main cannon unleashed a blinding beam straight into the planet. The entire surface shook. The pulse generator overloaded, and then, in a single burst of light, exploded. A shockwave ripped through the atmosphere, scattering the clouds and silencing every Zorath weapon. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The war was over. The broadcast back aboard the Titan, the crew sat in stunned silence. Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, staring at the burned planet below. She knew billions had died, soldiers, civilians, enemies. It wasn't a victory to celebrate. It was a message. She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Every system, every species." The officer hesitated. "Ma'am, the entire galaxy will hear you." Reyes nodded. "Good." A moment later, her voice echoed across the stars, carried on every signal across every ship and world. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of Earth. We never wanted war. We never wanted to conquer or destroy. But when you came for us, when you burned our worlds and killed our people, we learned. We learned to fight. We learned to stand. Humanity doesn't start wars, but we finish them." Her words were calm but powerful, the kind of words that would be remembered for centuries. Across the galaxy, alien races watched in silence. Some were afraid. Others were inspired. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was not seen as weak. They were seen as unstoppable. A new beginning as the message ended. The stars around the Titan began to brighten again. The battle was done, but the future was uncertain. Reyes looked out the window at the broken world below. Hayes walked beside her. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" he asked quietly. "Maybe not," Reyes said softly. "But they'll remember. And maybe that's enough." For the first time in a long time, Reyes allowed herself to breathe. The long war was over. The cost was high, too high, but humanity had survived, and the galaxy had heard their message. "This is humanity," she whispered. "We stand together, always." The war was over. The stars, once filled with fire and death, were quiet again. Where the Zorath homeworld had burned, now only dust and silence remained. The galaxy had changed. Forever. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the TDS Titan, looking down at the dark planet below. The once mighty capital of the Zorath Empire was now a wasteland, its black towers reduced to ash. No cheers filled the air. No one celebrated. There was only the sound of engines humming softly in the emptiness of space. Captain Hayes stepped beside her. He looked tired, older than he had before the war began. "It's finally done," he said quietly. Reyes didn't answer. Her eyes were still fixed on the planet. "It's never really done," she whispered. "Not after something like this." The cost of victory reports came in from across the fleet. Thousands of humans had died in the final battle. Entire ships lost. Whole colonies gone silent. The cost of survival had been heavy. On Earth, people filled the streets, not in celebration but in mourning. They held candles under the night sky, whispering names of those who never came home. Children looked up at the stars, not with fear this time, but with respect. Every light in the sky was a reminder of sacrifice. In the command room, Dr. Voss stood before a holographic display of the fallen. He turned to Reyes. "We won, Commander, but history will remember this day as both victory and tragedy." Reyes nodded slowly. "War always takes more than it gives." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Reyes looked at the stars again. "Still, humanity stood when no one believed we could. That means something." The message echoes across the galaxy. Her broadcast, the message she had sent before the final strike, was still spreading. Some alien worlds listened in fear, others in awe, and a few in hope. A small mining colony on the edge of the galaxy played the recording again and again. A group of young engineers watched silent until one said, "If humans can stand against an empire, maybe we can stand against ours too." The message had become more than words. It had become a spark, and sparks have a way of lighting fires that never die. The return. Home weeks later, the Dawnfire fleet began the long journey back to Earth. Their ships, scarred and damaged, moved slowly through the darkness. But every crew member knew they were going home. When they reached the solar system, Earth appeared through the mist of stars, blue, bright, and alive. For many, it was the first time seeing their home in years. Even the most battle-hardened soldiers fell silent. Tears filled their eyes as they saw the planet they had fought for. Reyes stood at the front of the bridge, her reflection glowing in the glass. "Home," she said softly. Hayes smiled for the first time in weeks. "We did what they said was impossible." Reyes nodded. "They thought they could defeat humanity. That was their first mistake. A new dawn back on Earth. A ceremony was held to honor the fallen." Reyes stood before the people of Earth, leaders, soldiers, and citizens alike. Behind her, the flags of every human colony waved in the wind. "We lost much," she began, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "But we gained something greater, unity. For the first time in our history, humanity stood as one, not as nations, not as colonies, but as one people." She paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. "The galaxy has seen our strength, and they will remember. We do not seek war. We seek peace. But if war comes again, humanity will stand." The crowd fell silent. Then slowly people began to rise. One by one they placed their hands over their hearts. No words, just respect. The speech was broadcast live to every colony, every ship, every outpost. Across the stars, humanity's voice reached even the darkest corners. The last transmission. That night, alone in her quarters aboard the Titan, Reyes made one final recording. Her voice was calm, her eyes tired but clear. "To whoever finds this message," she began, "know that humanity did not survive because of our weapons or our ships. We survived because we refused to surrender. We faced extinction and still stood tall. That is what it means to be human." She paused, then smiled faintly. "So if you ever think humanity can be broken, remember this story." She pressed a button, sending the transmission out into deep space, a message for the future, for anyone who would listen. The stars outside flickered, like they were listening too. Epilogue. The galaxy remembers years past. The ruins of the Zoroth Empire were reclaimed by nature. New civilizations rose, and the name Reyes became a legend, the woman who led humanity through its darkest hour. In galactic history, the event was known as the Day of Dawnfire. And every year on that day, Earth's people looked up at the night sky and whispered the same words: You thought you could defeat humanity? That was your first mistake. The stars shimmered quietly above, as if smiling back. The end.